Hey everyone, this is an anonymous sex and love addict. I have some thoughts on this book called If the Buddha Dated. It is by far my favorite dating book that I have read. And I've read quite a few now in recovery. I've gone on a few dating adventures in recovery. And If the Buddha Dated seems to be so far one of the most well-rounded books that I have read for dating. I also read this other one called Deeper Dating, and the reason that I like these two books is that they're still very monogamous. um, and I know there are lots of different lifestyles. And for me, sobriety is about honesty and what is in your heart, and it's not necessarily about following the dominant narrative. So I just want to put that out there. Um, but I liked If the Buddha Dated. I think one of the reasons that it was well rounded, that I found it to be well rounded, was that um, it was written by a woman who's bisexual, and she likes men and women. I've heard other definitions of bisexual recently, like I like my gender and all other genders. Personally, I identify as queer, and in program, as someone who was born with a female body, it was kind of expected that I would date men, um, and it's just what I did. And the dominant narrative of recovery and program, what I heard everyone talking about was this very gendered dating, and that wasn't really working for me. But I didn't know how to do it differently. I didn't hear too many different stories. All throughout my life, I was pushed more towards dating in a heteronormative way, and it's not all that I did, but it is more of what happened. And so uh Hi, good morning. Billy. Yeah, it's a cutie pie, huh? Yeah, 3 legs. Yeah. um and so I was pushed towards this like heteronormative way of dating. And anyways, I like If the Buddha Dated because it's really just about following your heart. And in program, there were all of these rules. And while I needed them at one point, as I continued dating, the rules became more of a way of control, maybe even more of a way of anorexia. And it just wasn't working. It was getting me into relationships with people who really wanted to be with me, but that didn't work for me, and that didn't fit my values and didn't fit who I was. And it really stresses the importance of spirituality in dating, and not just like following a set of rules to get the things that you want. Um, because in my experience, I think that I want something, and I'm not really asking my higher power, And so I get the thing that I want, and it leads to a painful experience that ends up setting me more free. But I believe that we can learn through happiness, and we can learn through pain, and it's our choice if we want a joyous lesson or not. And lessons can be joyous. I can pay attention to what makes me happy and follow that. And that's just not what other things that I read that were very gendered dating were telling me to do. And it has these brilliant exercises, these great, great exercises in that book. Getting clear on your ambivalence towards dating, getting clear on other parts of dating, like what do you want spiritually? How do you want to have a spiritual life with this person, and what kind of values do you want this person to have? And and one of the things that became very clear to me is like, I just want to be with someone that I feel like I'm my best person around. um, and after I read that book and I completed the exercises, it led to this very different way of dating for me, where the rules weren't so much about how many text messages a day or how long a phone call could be. Well, I did need those things at the beginning of my recovery to kind of point out to me when I was getting off the path that I wanted to be in. Now I'm at this point in my recovery where I don't need a set of rules to tell me when I'm not being sober. I don't need a set of rules anymore. And I know in my heart, like, I'm in touch enough with myself now that that's no longer what it's about, and I've worked through the steps and I'm working through them a second time, and I'm on step 10 again. And dating is such a beautiful adventure in that sense, that I just get to keep getting clear on what it is within me that needs to be given tender love and affection. And it's never anything that triggers me is never about the thing that I think that it's about in that moment, which kind of goes back to what I was saying before of like, I think I need this thing. I think I need this person who will like call me this much, or, I have this like grand idea about what I'm looking for. And then when I get that thing, it it has set me on paths of, you know, total trigger. And then I give tender love and affection to that place in myself that is wounded. And the situation seems to work itself out. I get out of my way when I tend to, like, basically my inner child, I tend to my inner child. I get out of my own way, and then my higher power does in my life what my higher power needs to do. And it leads to more freedom and stability and all of that. But after reading If the Buddha Dated, it was like I was learning through joy. So much of what I was learning was through joy. And not to say that I didn't have my process around things, that there weren't moments where I felt discomfort or had things come up that I needed to work through. I definitely did. But there was this undercurrent of like, this too shall pass and I will be okay. It was like, I had this firm ground of my higher power that I stood on. And other than that, there was just like this current of life. And I was just this rock that was being polished, and it felt good, and sometimes it felt raw. And but I was okay, and I knew I was going to be okay. And this is turning into more of an experience of my dating, of sober dating, than it is about the book If the Buddha Dated, but I would highly recommend that book. I know it's on the SLA New York website dating plan. They recommend to read that book. And one of the things that I like about it is that, sets of rules, like I could tell a sponsee or tell myself, like, this is what you need. But the truth is, it's up to God. It's up to my higher power. Like, there's so many plans that my human mind comes up with. And in AA, they're like, where my best thinking got me, we're like, my best thinking does not get me very far at all. And, and so it's just such a beautiful thing to be able to hand that over and give that to my higher power. Um, and to know that, like, even my own recovery isn't necessarily my business. Like, it's not up to me how quickly I recover or when I stop enacting certain patterns or any of that stuff. Like, that's between my higher power, really my higher power. And what I do have control over is how I work the steps, how I show up in the face of a trigger. Do I make phone calls? Am I honest? How honest can I be right now? What am I ready for? Am I being honest about what I'm ready for? That was a loud car. And not to say that I can't try. There are definitely times where I've been super triggered and just like doing all that I can to not try to not be triggered anymore or any of that kind of stuff, like one of the experiences that I went through um, before I read If the Buddha Dated was that I was communicating a lot with this person and it moved too fast. I had sex with them too quickly, blah, 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 blah. Life happened. And I was like attached in this way that I wasn't ready for because it wasn't a secure base anyway. And just all of this stuff. And I was thrown back into my abandonment trauma. And I was experiencing it in this out of body way, either in a way that I hadn't in a long, long time or a way that I wasn't present for because I was too busy, you know, acting out on my drugs, right? Like when I was in my addiction, I'm sure I felt it all the time. But then what I did instead was I used my like emotional liaisons or the drama and intensity of the relationship or snooping through their stuff and getting high on that kind of stuff so that I didn't have to feel the intense disassociation and trauma of the abandonment that I went through when I was 2. So I was thrown into that, and instead of wanting or needing something from this other person, I laid on the ground and I just prayed to my higher power. And I just said, please help me to know that there's nothing that I need from this person. Please help me to know that all is well and that you, higher power, are the source of love that sustains me. And just breathing and remembering that again and again and again. Oh, and that just like help me not try to get anything from this person. Like, how do I just try to show up for this person? And through that, like, I feel like, I don't want to say healed, but that trauma, that inner child, it doesn't act out anymore. Like, it trusts me to take care of it now. And so it doesn't act out. It doesn't take me out of my body anymore. It doesn't need someone else to fill that hole anymore. And I think that that's a result of, if you listen to the first video that I made, where I'm pretty sure in there I talk about how I started writing myself love letters. I think it was a long time ago that I um, did that. But anyways, so I think my inner child, it just trusts me now. It just trusts me because I've shown it that I'm trustworthy and that I'm not going anywhere. I'm never going to go anywhere ever again. I'm always going to be here for my inner child now. Like, that's a promise that I made. And like, that's what I have choice over. I don't always necessarily have choice over like falling into a weird, funky pattern or any of that stuff, but I have choice over showing up for my inner child when it falls into a weird, funky pattern and saying to my inner child, hey, baby, like, what's going on with you? What do you need me to know right now? When's the first time that you felt this way? How can I take care of you? What are you needing from this other person? What am I not giving to you? What happened? What are you trying to tell me? I have choice over that. I have choice over working my steps. I have choice over asking my higher power for help. You know, so often I have to say, higher power, if this isn't for me, then take it from me. Higher power, I know that I want this thing from this event. I know I want this particular outcome, but you show me. You show me and help me do this with grace and with ease, higher power. And that's like my new mantra, is that kind of what I talked about a little bit earlier. It can all happen with grace and with ease and with joy. And it doesn't have to be a fight and it doesn't have to be a struggle. That's what I used to think for the longest time. It's going to be so much pain to work through all of it. And like, whatever, that was part of my path. And I'm not going to judge myself for that. But I know that that's not how it has to be anymore. You know, it can be different. It can be joyous. It can be free. And I'm sure there's still so much more that I have to work on. I'm sure that there's still so much more for me to know about myself. But the cool thing is, each and every time that I work through yet another layer, that I get to know yet another inner child, that I get to know yet another piece of myself, when I say I love you, I mean it so much more. Just that little bit more. And then my heart feels more full. I feel like a more whole person. I feel at peace. I feel at peace. And that is so much more than I ever knew to want for myself. So that was going to be my review on if the Buddha dated. And now instead, that is me talking about what dating does for me, I think. Okay. Thanks for listening.